My boyfriend always thought I lived a simple, struggling life. He had no idea I make $40,000 a month. Then, he invited me to dinner with his parents, thinking he was introducing me as his humble girlfriend. I decided to see how far their judgment would go. And what happened next was beyond anything I could have imagined. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or made to feel small, this story is for you. Hit that subscribe button and like this video because you're about to witness a perfectly executed lesson in poetic justice. Let's dive in. I've always been careful about how I present myself. I like the simple things in life: cozy apartments, second-hand furniture, thrift store finds, but there's a reason behind that. The truth is, I make $40,000 a month, not a year, a month. It's nothing I flaunt, because I've learned early on that people treat you differently when they know your income. And with my boyfriend, I wanted to see the real him. We'd been dating for almost a year. He was smart, charming, and ambitious in his own way. But he had this subconscious habit of treating people like social ladders, always testing their status, often without realizing it. And I knew that if he saw me as wealthy, he might stop loving me and start loving what I could provide. So, I kept it hidden. I didn't live lavishly. I didn't drop hints, and I never talked about my finances to him. I was just me, simple, thoughtful, occasionally quirky, and always present. Then came the invitation that changed everything. "Hey," he said one evening, "my parents are in town next week. Want to come over for dinner?" I agreed, smiling to myself. This was the perfect test. I wanted to see how they'd react to someone who looked harmlessly ordinary, completely unaware of her hidden financial power. I wanted to see if they were the kind of people who valued status over character. The day of the dinner arrived, and I put on my most modest outfit: jeans, a simple sweater, no jewelry. Just me. I wanted to blend in, to make their expectations as low as possible. When we arrived, the first thing I noticed was the house. Not ostentatious, but definitely upscale. The kind of place that says, "We've made it, and we expect you to notice." My boyfriend introduced me casually, his voice tinged with pride. "Mom, Dad, this is my girlfriend." His mother's eyes swept over me, sharp and calculating, the kind of look that silently inventories every potential flaw. His father gave a polite nod, but I could see the wheels turning in his head, silently comparing me to some invisible checklist. We sat down, and the conversation began. At first, it was small talk: college, work, hobbies. I answered politely, sharing enough to seem personable but not revealing too much about my life. I noticed the subtle glances between my boyfriend and his mother. She had a way of looking at people like they were auditioning for a role in her approval or disapproval registry. Then the questions started. "So, what do you do?" she asked. "I work in digital marketing," I replied softly, smiling. "I help brands grow online." "Oh, that's interesting," she said, her voice clipped, almost skeptical. I could see her forming her judgments already. "Not prestigious enough. Not impressive." "What kind of clients do you have?" my boyfriend's father asked. "Oh, all sorts. A few small businesses, some startups," I said casually. I didn't mention anything about my income. I wanted them to underestimate me, to assume that I was still figuring things out, financially naive. Charming, harmless. By dessert, they were practically eyeing me with a mixture of curiosity and mild suspicion. I could sense the subtle judgment, the mental notes they were taking. My boyfriend, oblivious to the tension, beamed at me. "See? I told you she's amazing." I smiled, internally savoring the control I had. When the evening ended, we said our goodbyes. As we walked to the car, my boyfriend hugged me tightly. "Mom and Dad liked you," he said. "I think they approve." I laughed softly, hiding my thrill. "Approve? They have no idea." Over the next few days, I reflected on the dinner. It was clear his parents had judged me based on my appearance and perceived financial status. They treated me politely, but condescendingly, as if I were a project to be assessed rather than a person to know. And I realized I didn't have to just let them think that. I could teach them a lesson. I started planning carefully. Nothing rash. This had to be precise, elegant, and undeniable. First, I bought a new outfit, a sleek designer dress that screamed understated luxury. Then, I booked a reservation at the city's most exclusive restaurant, the kind where the waitlist alone costs hundreds. I was going to invite them to experience what they assumed I couldn't afford. Next, I had to ensure the reveal would be memorable. I decided to mention my work casually, letting them put two and two together rather than hitting them over the head. The idea was psychological, almost surgical, make them realize they had misjudged me, but without me saying a word. The night arrived. My boyfriend had no idea what I had planned. I casually suggested, "Hey, want to join me and a few friends for dinner? It's at that new place downtown." His parents were thrilled. Finally, I thought, they'll meet the real me. When we arrived, I made sure they noticed the valet parking, the subtle elegance of the restaurant, the attention the staff gave me as if I were royalty. They shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware that they were far out of their element. My boyfriend looked confused. "It's fancy, huh?" he asked. I smiled sweetly. "It's just a place I like to go," I said. The dinner itself was impeccable. I ordered without hesitation, treating each dish as a simple pleasure, not a status statement. But the true revelation came when conversation drifted back to work. One of my friends, a client of mine, casually mentioned a recent campaign. I leaned in and said, "Yes, we executed that campaign last month. I handled the strategy and managed the team." The room went quiet. My boyfriend's parents looked at me like they'd just been struck by lightning. I could see the cogs turning, the realization dawning. I smiled gently. It was a big project. The client was thrilled. The team worked hard. Silence. Their judgment had collided with reality. They had assumed I was a modest, inexperienced woman, and suddenly, they realized I was far beyond their assumptions. Not only competent but highly successful. My boyfriend, finally catching on, looked at me with wide eyes. "Wait, you did that? You run campaigns like that?" I nodded. "Yes. I manage multiple clients every month. It's challenging but rewarding." His mother cleared her throat, a weak attempt at regaining composure. We didn't realize." I let the silence linger, long enough for the lesson to settle. No explanations, no bragging, just the undeniable truth of their misjudgment staring back at them. By the end of the night, they were visibly shaken, their polite smiles thin and strained. My boyfriend, finally understanding the scale of what I did, couldn't stop apologizing for the assumptions they had made. And I felt it vindication, the satisfaction of knowing that those who underestimated me had been confronted, not with anger or resentment, but with the unassailable truth. In the days that followed, the tension eased, but the lesson lingered. My boyfriend became more thoughtful, more aware of how assumptions can blind people to reality. His parents, too, treated me with genuine respect, finally seeing me as an equal, rather than someone to test or judge. And me? I felt a freedom I hadn't known before. The secret I'd held was no longer about money, it was about agency. About demonstrating that judgment based on appearances is always flawed. I hadn't needed to flaunt wealth, intimidate, or humiliate. I simply let reality do the work. It was a quiet, perfect revenge. Not vindictive, not cruel, just precise, undeniable, and fully earned. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't shouting or confrontation, it's simply proving people wrong in the most undeniable way. When you combine patience, strategy, and self-respect, justice becomes effortless. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or judged unfairly, share this story with someone who needs a reminder that perception isn't reality. Comment below, what would you do if someone judged you unfairly? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because sometimes the best revenge is living your truth and letting the world catch up.